Hello, everybody. Welcome again to our Zoom and Anxiety Warrior Strategies. Today, we're going to talk about being highly sensitive. And just as a reminder, we have done other programs. You're welcome to watch them and rewatch them. And also when you come onto Zoom, know that you have privacy as well. And we always welcome questions. They're important because these programs are for you. Last session, we presented different ways of meditation. So moving meditation to like Tai Chi, yoga, walking in the woods, and we presented a guided imagery. And you can go online and enjoy a 10-minute guided imagery. And it's quite beautiful. We added some pictures to that and it works quite well. So what I'd like to talk about is being highly sensitive, and it's a character trait that was named in the 1980s by Elaine and Arthur Aron. And maybe, you know, you were called overly shy or too sensitive or overreactive or oversensitive. Those are negative words about a character trait that was named in the 1980s of highly sensitive. And there's about 20% of the population that is highly sensitive. So what does that mean? And highly sensitive has a good side on it, and it has what I call an unpleasant, maybe it might feel like an ugly side. So what it means is you will be the type of person that would notice the sun rays coming through the clouds. You would be the type of person that would notice the droplets on a spider web. You'd be the type of person that when you hear music or sounds, they really affect you. We're quite sensitive. You'll also be able to differentiate bird sounds. You're also the type of person that perhaps you're an animal whisperer of some kind, like a pet whisperer, chicken whisperer, horse whisperer. So being highly sensitive, you can tune into other animals and humans. Perhaps on the not so pleasant side, you might wake up in a pretty good mood and maybe be around a family member that isn't in a good mood. And when we're highly sensitive, we tend to be empathic and we absorb that mood, and then we might not feel so good after that. Another thing is you could wake up again pretty good. However, maybe listen to the news and some negativity or sad stories. You would absorb all that, and then it could affect you for the rest of the day. One of the examples I use in my private practice is that you know, you may go to a grocery store to buy groceries, and especially nowadays in this situation, and perhaps you could be a bit guarded. However, if somebody is unpleasant to you, that could upset you the rest of the day. And it also could work with road rage if somebody gets upset with you. And we're going to give some strategies where we can dampen those situations or soften them somehow. Our strategies don't completely take away what we notice as highly sensitive people. However, we certainly can lessen the effect. And I'd like to talk a little bit about some things that could be true for a child. And then I will also talk about some things that could be true for a teenager, adult. And unfortunately today, I'm missing the chat with Nathan, but we've got some sound technologies. And, you know, if anybody else wants to join, we certainly can do that. So the other thing we're going to do is post a PDF online, a PDF. It's a survey or questionnaire for a parent. And this will come, will be posted for you. They're certainly not diagnostic in any means. However, they do give us a lot of clues. And sometimes we think a child is behaving poorly when really they're highly sensitive. And when I describe some of these things, I think you can relate to them. And sometimes I know my body, it feels like a pincushion. And when we're sensory sensitive, so what that means is sight, sound, touch, smell, that we can get overloaded quite quickly. And it can feel pretty terrible. It feels as if, sometimes I relate it to pincushions all over your body. And, you might not want one more pincushion going at you. And sometimes the strategy is quiet or darkness, and we need that time. And a child wouldn't particularly know how to do that. So a child that's highly sensitive could have a lot of fun. It doesn't mean they're not having fun. They could have a very exciting day, and let's say they come home to a quiet place, perhaps supper. And after those exciting days, a bath is a good idea, or even laying down in a quiet room, or playing in a quiet room just for a few minutes. However, sometimes we don't recognize that it's been an exciting day for that highly sensitive child, and then we go into another evening of activity or expectation, and then the child or the person has a meltdown because they simply cannot take any more stimulation. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a negative stimulation. So some of the things that children, I have the sheet here, that children experience, and you can ask yourself this, and you don't have to write this down or memorize it, because we're going to post them. So the child may startle easily. That's possible. And as I list some of these things, it doesn't mean that the child is going to feel every single aspect here that I'm listing. It may be just a few, even if it's 5 or 6. You can be highly sensitive in certain areas and not highly sensitive in others. And sometimes I think as we talked about anxiety, it can be a little bit confusing, because you might consider or identify as highly sensitive when your friend is highly sensitive in another area. So here's one. The child could complain about scratchy clothing, perhaps seams in socks or labels against the skin. And something like that, a parent might think, oh, that's not important. However, because the child is sensory sensitive, that those labels become very distracting and they become irritating. So children have been known either not to wear socks or have to have those labels cut off. And I think even as an adult, sometimes we've had those irritating labels that they just itch you like crazy. A highly sensitive child usually doesn't enjoy big surprises or big changes or sudden changes. Highly sensitive, we need time to digest, to absorb, to kind of get almost used to an idea of changing. So where this comes into play is, classroom changes, or rearranging the seats. If they're not prepared for that in a classroom, that could be very upsetting for a highly sensitive child. If changes have been made to activities, whether they're happening or not, or cancellations, that can be difficult. And it's something that we learn. And if there's too many things that are too many changes, that can also be upsetting for a highly sensitive. A highly sensitive child, this is really interesting too, which, and people and parents have talked about this, that they do much better with constructive and gentle correction. And there are some children, whether it's in coaching or sports or in discipline or bringing up a child, that they can do so much better with gentle correction and talking. And that's how they learn. And I've known children and adults that have spoken and said, you know what, all you had to do was talk to me. I didn't need to be punished. And that's true. Some kids just don't do it. And other kids, they're not highly sensitive. And I've seen that with coaching, where a coach has a certain style. And actually, I witnessed it with twins. And one twin was highly sensitive and the other one wasn't. And they were both in a sport. And the coaching technique was very much shouting, not so much a gentle encouragement. However, go, 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 and don't do that, and very loud. And one child thrived in that atmosphere, and the other twin crumbled in it. And there's not a right or wrong. It's just to recognize that when we're highly sensitive, we need a different style. And that would mean also a coaching style. Another characteristic is that the child, you may think or feel that they seem to read your mind. So children can be very sensitive and they attune to the environment around them. Just reading some of the notes. Okay. Another one is a highly sensitive child will use big words for his or her age. They do notice smells and different odors. They also have a very clever sense of humor. They seem to be very intuitive. And we talked a little bit about this, about the exciting day, that they have trouble getting to sleep after exciting day. So again, I mentioned the technique about a bath. That's got to be one of the easiest ways to settle a child. Usually they enjoy a bath, they can play, it's quiet time, the water settles them down, and they get clean, and they can spend an hour in there and totally relax and let go of the day. So that's a very easy technique for helping a child after an exciting day. We already talked about changes. Also, a child that's highly sensitive wants to change out of clothes if they're wet or dirty or sandy. They just have to get that off. And so as a parent, if you're seeing that kind of impatience from the child, is not that they're bossing you or trying to be ill-behaved. It's just that for them, again, their sensory input is they're on an overload and they've just got to get those clothes off. A highly sensitive child asks a lot of questions. And I laugh about that because I think as a child, I didn't stop asking questions. So they just ask a lot of questions. Also, a highly sensitive child tends to be a perfectionist and they have a high bar, but not all of them. And they do notice the distress of others. And it says here, some of them prefer quiet play, but that again is up to the child. Some children like exciting games, and it still may be too much for them. However, they enjoy it. So these aren't always a negative things. And highly sensitive children also ask very deep, thought-provoking questions. They seem to be wise, born as wise little Buddhas or wise shamans already. And they are very sensitive. Some of them can be very sensitive to pain. So that's a sensation. They're bothered by loud noises or perhaps a lot of noises. And we're going to talk about this a little bit with the adults, is that, if the radio is going and then a TV is going and then you're trying to converse to that highly sensitive child, they're going to be on overload because they're hearing the radio, the TV, and you, and they're putting that sentence together and it's all jarbled words, and can be quite disruptive. It's just too much. Or they may not do well in places like malls or perhaps even the city when the sirens are going, every hour on the hour. Highly sensitive will also notice subtleties and small changes in whether it's in a person's appearance, whether they've cut their bangs or gotten a haircut, or perhaps I remember one child, And actually, I'm wearing the earrings today, which is interesting. I had lost one of these earrings, and my mother had given them to me when I was 18. And I really was upset that I had lost the one earring. So I was able to have one made, and they're pretty much similar. However, if you put them side by side, you would notice the difference. Well, I had a child that I was working with and immediately said, "You've got two different earrings on." And that just blew me away because I think most of us would think they were the same, but they're not quite exactly the same. So it's very interesting that highly sensitive children, they will notice subtleties. Not that, you know, that's going to make or break the character trait. It isn't. It's just that some will notice and be very, very observant. A highly sensitive child will also consider safety. They will think about climbing high places. They will think about climbing rocks. They will look at things ahead of time and consider safety, which is interesting. And they also perform best when strangers aren't around, and they don't really particularly want people watching them. Again, that can be a yes or no on some children. And a highly sensitive child also feels things very deeply. So if you find that your child has a few of these, and when you see the PDF, one of the things you can do in that questionnaire is, it's always interesting too to try when two parents fill it out and to give it a number rating from 0 to 10. So if it doesn't bother that child, obviously it's a 0. 10, it affects them a lot. And it's interesting too, because sometimes the parents will see different things, and they notice different things about the child. And again, it's not a good or bad. It's just something that to notice, and then we can work strategies around that. And one of the things is the understanding. Once we understand a child is highly sensitive, then we can work with that, and knowing again that they're not behaving poorly, however, that maybe they're just on overload, or they're needing some quiet space. And I know some parents are quite concerned when a child is hiding in a closet at the end of the day, and they're thinking something's wrong with the child, and really that child just wants some quiet and some dark. So I just say, let them sit in the closet, let them play in the closet as long as they like. And usually, really, it only may be 20 minutes, maybe an hour. I've not really seen it much longer than that. Sometimes the child may want to sleep in the closet, and again, that's not a bad thing. It's just that they're wanting that quiet cocoon type atmosphere, and that sensory, I want to say to sensory deprivation, but that sensory relief of just not being stimulated, and that's so important. I don't know if I know there's some people on. I don't know if there's a question, if anybody wants to put in a question. I know we're a bit limited with our audio today, so you'll have to listen to me nonstop. So I think we're still good for time. Okay. Well, I'm going to, and you're free, anybody's free to put questions on. I have the chat here in front of me. So I have now the sheet, and again, we're going to put it up, is the highly sensitive person sheet, and it's a self-test. So you can, as a teenager, fill this out, or older. And you've got both forms, so they're both, I think, very interesting and helpful. Again, not diagnostic, just to give clues. And again, it's not that you have to have every single one of these, but I was just doing this survey the other day again, and it looks like I have almost every single one. Just a little story. I remember and I think I might have mentioned this when we first started the series, is I was the child in the classroom that if someone else got in trouble, I'd be in the back quietly crying. I would be affected. I would feel upset. And I didn't realize that I was highly sensitive. I would be absorbing the feelings of what was going on. So if somebody got yelled at, if the teachers at that point would slap rulers on the table or yell, that would really affect me and upset me. And but I didn't know that was a character trait at the time. And I remember in my 20s, I had a sign painting business. And I remember being so affected by certain things happening in the business. And I just cursed myself so many times for feeling so much and for being so upset. And I would think that that was wrong. And anyways, yeah, I see somebody saying they're very overstimulated right now. And I guess by the end of the program, if there's any way of having quiet time, one of the things that I do and when I'm driving is I don't have the phone on. I don't have any music on, and I just drive in the quiet vehicle. And it's just a way of taking a little break right now. So sorry, I'm just getting comfortable again. Some of the character traits, again, for an adult are very similar as to a child. Is one of them is I'm easily overwhelmed by strong sensory input. So what that means is it could be smell, it could be sound, it just could be so many things, flashing lights. And I want to relate it to going to the mall. And I actually mostly avoid malls. However, sometimes you still have to go, or you want to go, or there's something there that you want to pick up. And so the malls, the stimulation in a mall is so extreme, I want to say. When I compare it to living where I do in nature, we've got lights flashing from different stores. We've got the different signs. We've got different window displays. We've got people walking back and forth, lots of conversation, lots of noise, and lots of music going on. So that, and then smells. And, whether it's smells from the food court or perfume, these strong smells, whether they're organic ones or not, all our senses are being stimulated. And then of course we have temperature, and it could just be too much. And sometimes you have to prepare for it, or maybe just know what your limits are, and whether it's, maybe you can tolerate 15 minutes, maybe you can tolerate an hour, maybe you can do breaks, but just knowing that strong sensory input may affect you. The other thing is that you do see subtleties as well. If somebody has rearranged furniture, or did some gardening or landscaping, you'll notice that. Other people's moods will affect you. I know Nathan did some landscaping, that's why I said that. Other people's moods will affect you. So again, we've got to be, I'm going to make sure we have time to review the shield, because one of the things that we have learned, and I think the word empathic is when we show empathy, and we think that's a good thing or a good quality, and it's important to have empathy. However, if we're absorbing that empathy into our bodies, that's not a good thing. If I didn't protect myself throughout the day, if I didn't have a shield up, I would be a dish rag by 10 o'clock, by 11 o'clock, because if I'm absorbing that, that's not fair to me. And it's not necessary as a highly sensitive person, whether you're a therapist, a wellness worker, whether you're a parent, a pet owner, a son, daughter, we still even though when we do that, we're going to do that strategy of the shield, we still are sensitive. However, we leave that outside of us so that that doesn't turn us all inside out and upside down, and because that's not an advantage to us or to anybody else. So we've got to really be careful. And like I said, putting up the shield does not stop you from noticing or being sensitive. It just doesn't let that come in and kind of whirl you all up and mess you up. Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, maybe you're the type of person that can walk into your office building and just know what that atmosphere is like. Or maybe you're the type of person that can go to a family dinner and just feel the vibes off of people before they even say anything. That's noticing people's moods. Or a girlfriend, or you know, noticing energy and that tone. Somehow we can feel that. Maybe you're sensitive to pain. That's possible. Not every highly sensitive person have I noticed that that's possible, but it could be one of the factors. One of the things is in here is you find yourself needing to withdraw after a busy day, and maybe you need to go to bed or a darkened room, somewhere where you can have relief from stimulation. So here's the thing is, you know, I know somebody when they come home from work, they have to go to bed. The family knows that. They go lay down. They don't go to bed. They just lay on top of the bed in a dark room. Sometimes it's 5 minutes. Sometimes it's half an hour. Sometimes it's an hour. And their strategy is to allow their body to settle. So all that stimulation throughout the day to calm. And when they come out, the family has accepted that when they come out, that they're ready to join into the evening. And sometimes, and that's a great strategy if you're able to do it. Sometimes we can't do it or we have to wait. It's just important that we do that. One of my clients said that they really enjoy the shower. It was their way of rinsing away the tension. They visualized that rinsing, and they stood under the shower for a long time and just let that rinse away all those tensions and busyness. This one's interesting, and this applies to children, but it wasn't on the list, is that as highly sensitive, we tend to be sensitive to caffeine. So that includes chocolate, of course, and whatever else caffeine is in. I think green tea, not sure about other things, but so we have to be careful of that. And, you know, maybe even decaf makes us sensitive. We can also be sensitive to sugars. So we just have to know our bodies. Being overwhelmed with bright lights, strong smells, we talked a little bit about that, coarse fabrics. And that's really interesting. Maybe you don't know this about Leonardo da Vinci a little bit. He was very sensory rich, and he was known to wear velvets and very beautiful clothes. And it was really important to him about the texture of the clothes. He also wore oils, so their type of mixture of perfumes and things. And another thing that he did, which was interesting, he did a lot of meditation. The other thing he did is he actually hired musicians, because back then you didn't have a boombox or Wi-Fi or cell phones or Bluetoothing. He hired musicians to play in the background while he painted. So he was a very, very sensory man. Sometimes he got criticized for it. His patrons didn't think he should waste time meditating or having quiet time. that he told them that it was his contemplation time. And when we see from his drawings and the information and what he created and invented, you can see that he had quite the mind. So he knew how to nurture it and how to calm it. So that's something what we need to also practice. So as highly sensitive, we do have a rich, complex inner life. So what that means is that we tend to be very introspective. We tend to do a lot of thinking and wondering and questioning. So that is part of a highly sensitive mind as well. Being deeply moved by the arts. Talked about Leonardo da Vinci, of course, and it can be any art. It could be going on a studio tour or seeing somebody's painting and seeing the emotion in the painting. It could be listening to a concert, going to a concert, listening to music and feeling that music at a very, very deep level. And I was recently watching a piece on, I guess it's on YouTube, on not America's Talent, but the voice one, the singing one. Anyways, it was of a lovely song this woman had done, and just her tone, it just gave you chills. And with highly sensitive, of course, we're going to feel that even deeper and even be moved to tears of beauty and of love. And that can happen when we're highly sensitive, for sure. Sometimes my nervous system is frazzled. So frazzled, I have to go off by myself. So some of these things I'm just saying in a different way. They're similar. So when you notice that, and you know, I want to spend a little time on that wording because sometimes we can't put it into words. People have said scattered, frazzled. I've used the term feeling like a pin cushion, like there's all these needles, pins and needles inside me. Sometimes it affects my stomach internally. Sometimes we might get hot. Sometimes our heart starts beating and pounding. So, you know, when that feeling is happening, it's time to slow down somehow. And what is that slowing down for you? Is it by sitting near a pond, near water? Is it by sitting in nature? Is it by going in a quiet room? Highly sensitive people are conscientious. So what that means is they care. And actually, that's another strategy we can talk about, and we haven't yet, is about we need to be careful how much we care. And I know that probably sounds terrible. And what I mean, though, is we need to, we do need to be careful how we care and how we're conscientious and move in the world. We're also very careful. However, if we're too careful, and that I'll have to just maybe make a note of that, because next time what I'm wanting to do in our next session is talk about some different strategies. So we can certainly talk about that one. And because sometimes we can care too much. And what happens with highly sensitive, it drains us and it breaks us down. And that does not do service to ourselves or children or to any of the work that we're trying to do. And so we need to be careful how much we care. And we also need to let people take responsibilities for their own lives. So that's where that differentiation comes in. But we'll talk a little bit more about that after. The other thing is we could startle easily. We may get rattled if we've got too much to do. And this is also, we may feel overwhelmed if there's too much on our plate. So if you get that overwhelmed feeling, it could just be that your list is too big. And other people that aren't so sensitive, they thrive on this kind of pressure or stimulation. So if you don't thrive on it, you're probably highly sensitive. You notice when people are uncomfortable. Maybe you get annoyed when people ask you to do too many things. Highly sensitive people really try hard not to make mistakes. or forgetting things. So if that's the case, is one of the things that's really important is to know you're human, and ask yourself if you're supposed to be 100% perfect and not make any mistakes. So we're bound to make some mistakes. And if you're worried about forgetting things, I'm like the note queen. If you saw my desk, you'd just see so many notes. Nathan's laughing because he's seen my desk. And there's many, many, many notes. And you know what I do is sometimes I consolidate those notes. So I don't have a big pile, I just have a small pile of notes. So maybe 2 or 3 on the go at a time, but I'll just write it on a note. I've got little Post-its everywhere, little pads of paper all over. And if I get overwhelmed with those, they go into one. But then I can relax. I don't have to worry about trying to remember something. Highly sensitive, we try to avoid violent movies and violent shows. And again, you know, what we put into our system is going to come out. So if we're watching violence, if we're hearing a lot of negative things, we're taking all that in. Somehow it has to come out again. So whether it comes out in dreams, whether it comes out in artwork, whether it comes out in how we speak, you know, just know what you put into your system, it has to come out again. Being hungry. That may affect a highly sensitive person. I see Nathan nodding. So yeah. And when we're hungry, it can add or create a very strong reaction in us. And I know you know, for myself, sometimes I don't feel physically hungry, but I notice that I get very, very agitated. And once I eat and slow down, my whole system calms down. So we've just got to really notice that. And again, notice that with children too. Children are hungry 24/7. And so always having food around, or snacks or veggies, fruit, something, we need to watch our bodies, right? Changes in my life shake me up. So as highly sensitive, quick changes are upsetting. And it doesn't have to be a negative thing. It could even be a promotion or a new job. It's still very stressful for us. And so again, it's about taking care of ourselves and just being gentle with the change. And one of the things I find that, and again, that PDF is coming out to you, and if you've got somebody in your life that doesn't understand highly sensitive, is perhaps maybe share the sheet with them, because they may not understand. If they're not highly sensitive, they may not understand that you're having these reactions and it's not affecting them. However, it's affecting you. And the other thing that's really kind of a plus is we do notice subtle smells, and that can be flowers. I mean, I walk by and I've got roses in my garden, and it stops me because I smell these beautiful roses, and it's just amazing. Or lilies, and we can smell those things, or the fresh rain, or even wet dirt. I love the smell of wet dirt. So we notice smells. And okay, let's say a strategy is to prioritize when we have our list. And I'm sure that we have lists that that are not humanly possible to do in one day. So we all have those big lists, is to prioritize and to, you know, just take a moment. And again, last week's meditation it's so worthwhile to slow down, to take a breath, and just have quiet time, even if it's 2-3 minutes, 5 minutes, and prioritize. That little exercise in itself can change your stress level by, well, we talked about 0 to 10, probably by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points easily. Because all of a sudden you're looking at, oh, okay, if I do this, and those other things may not even need to be done today, or they're not as important. Prioritizing is a really great strategy for highly sensitized, highly sensitive. And the other one, these are just two more. Some of them are repeats, but if a highly sensitive person needs to compete, that seems to be stressful. And or if we're observed doing a task, that can be a bit stressful. The other thing, one I've noticed for myself is whenever I had to do those aptitude tests or different tests in school, or whether it was for a job, guaranteed I failed them every single time. And that was really hard on me. And what I realized is when I was, and I've noticed this too, is when I'm put on the spot and asked a question, and if I don't know that question, or that question, the answer may determine somebody's mood, or may determine some kind of outcome, usually my mind will go blank. There's nothing up there. And that is just simply stress and anxiety. So, you know, these aptitude tests, the way I got around them was if I could do it verbally was a big difference, because I could settle. Or another thing that you can help with yourself or a child or student is an accommodation, so extra time. And my daughter, she used to have extra time for tests and exams. The ironic part of all that is when you have the backup and the extra time, you usually don't need it. So it's just so interesting, because what happens is the time pressure is off of us. And then our minds can relax and we can do the tasks. So that's an interesting strategy as well. So one of the things, I know I think we have 5 minutes. I thought we had 15 minutes because we started late. I see a big smile from Nathan. I really want to give a strategy. So we have time for the strategy, and it's called the shield. And some people, we've talked about things like personal space. So in North America, we tend to have a bigger personal space. It's about 3 to 4 feet, which is interesting. It's not far from what they call on this physical distancing. we actually have that luxury, which is interesting up here in Muskoka. And we like to take that space. The other term you may have heard is my personal hula hoop, or a hula hoop around you. That could be a way of identifying a shield. One of my clients says she pretends before she goes into the grocery store, she pulls up this hula hoop of herself, for herself. And the idea is that this energy, whatever the energy is, stays outside of her hula hoop. Another, you've seen me using my arms. We use the term at arm's length. We want to keep something at arm's length. And again, what that means is that that energy that's coming in, it stays at arm's length. It does not get to come in here and turn my guts all upside down. So at arm's length. So a shield can be any of those at any time. However, it can be a shield that is part of your imagination. So it could be a bubble. It could be the force field. Some people have used music all around them, light, waterfalls, whatever that shield is for you. So what I'd like to do before we end is I'd like you to take a few minutes and think of what shield in your imagination, in your mind's eye, can protect you. So it's the inner part of you here, and probably around like this. What can protect you and keep energy outside that you don't want in. So, and notice I'm not using a good or bad or pleasant or unpleasant. It doesn't matter. We don't need to have judgment around it. It's just that we just don't want that in our circle at the moment. We'll still notice it. We'll still notice. We're still sensitive. We're still going to notice. It just doesn't get to come past that shield. So I want you to imagine your own shield, what that might be. So taking a nice deep breath. And I'm going to do the butterfly tap because you can't see my legs, but you could do this on your legs if you want to. And just tap alternately. And notice your shield. So breathing in your shield. And you can have your eyes open or closed. It doesn't matter. So think about your shield. And what the tapping does, it just, it makes the imagery and the strategy stronger, quicker. So it's something you can practice at the beginning of the day. You can practice at any time of the day. So imagining this shield, and this shield does protect you, and it will keep energy outside the shield. And the other part of that is, let's say you installed your shield in the morning and then you got busy throughout the day. So you take a deep breath and you get distracted. And maybe whether you went to work or you went shopping and bam, somebody's energy just got to you and it just got to you. That happens all the time. We get caught off guard. Just breathe, nice deep breath. And you can't see me, but I'll just stand up. But you can tap your sides. You can tap your legs. If you're in your car, you can certainly do the butterfly tap. And it's back. And like I said, it doesn't keep everything out 100%. However, it really takes that energy down. And the comparison I want to use is, I used to, let's say road rage, if something happened on the road and something was very upsetting driving, that could have bothered me for 2 or 3 days. Now it's minutes. So I've usually forgotten about it by the time I get to the destination. And it doesn't bother me. It's the difference between having, a big mosquito coming at you, or a bumblebee, well, not a bumblebee, but a hornet, or just a little black fly. And, you're still going to notice it. It's just the energy is much, much lower. And the event certainly much shorter. And kids really like this activity as well. We can have a lot of fun with them, with kids. So if you want to, again, email or put any questions, anything specific, happy to address that in the program. The next session is going to be August the 18th, I believe I wrote down. Yes. And I'm going to make a note, because that one strategy about being empathetic, I want to talk about. We haven't done that. And it is actually a really great strategy. And so I'm just writing that one down, and we're going to bring some other strategies that we can use as well. So again, thank you for joining us. Yes, thank you, everybody. Always a pleasure.